Let's take a look at the film from the Vikings 27-19 loss to the Ravens on Sunday with Andrew Krammer. I don't think they're going to like looking at it, but they're going to do it also, Andrew. And I think they're going to see a lot of issues, especially offensively. I mean, they moved the ball okay. They had 360 yards. They ended up, 6 yards of play, something like that. JJ McCarthy brought both of those things up after the game as signs that it's there for the Vikings if they can clean stuff up. But probably a deeper probe into the film reveals probably some more cracks, maybe starting first and foremost in your rewatching with the young quarterback.
Yeah, I thought JJ McCarthy just struggled out there to do the kind of quarterbacking things you want to see him do. I thought Kevin O'Connell game planned, and the coaches, Wes Phillips and all of them, game planned a pretty QB friendly approach going up against a Ravens defense that gives up a lot of yards. Like, that's how it should look when they produced. That's how it should look against Baltimore, because Baltimore is not a very good defense. So they found some holes, but it opened up with a lot of screens. It opened up with a lot of quick passes, and then some of the deep shots were built off of some of the quick stuff they were trying to set up. So you could see the layers and kind of intention of what they were trying to do offensively, and it made a ton of sense. But when Jordan Addison comes wide open on a 20-yard dig route off a play action, one of the times they asked JJ to stand in the pocket, the offensive line gets caved in the middle. And I think it was the nose tackle gets his big arm up and knocks down one of the many passes batted down at the line of scrimmage for McCarthy. I thought the offensive line played poorly and struggled in this one, even though this was just the third game all year that the five guys who started the game for the Vikings played the entire thing. Like, their offensive line's been so in and out. They finally get them out there. And for as good as I thought they played against Detroit, I did not think they played very well. And I'm not even talking about the penalties. I'm talking about just straight up blocking. Like, there were times on a run with Aaron Jones, just kind of a basic zone play where Fries and O'Neal miscommunicate, two veterans, and a guy just walks right in between them to tackle Aaron Jones for a loss. I thought Christian Darrisaw was letting guys bounce off him early in the game too. That wasn't very encouraging. And so, to me, McCarthy had a lot to deal with. The Ravens were aggressive. He talked about them throwing the kitchen sink at him in terms of blitzes, which is, it's kind of what they do. And I wasn't, I don't watch all the Ravens games, so I don't know how much they changed up versus what they normally do. He said, players said they did change up some things that the Vikings weren't expecting, but other players talked about, like, no, we expected a lot of this as well, and we just didn't execute. And when you get 8 false starts, it was the most by any team, I believe, since 2011, like the most false starts in the game in 14 years. It just shows you how poorly the entire operation is. And it does go back to the quarterback. Like, fans have been asking, like, what is it with these false starts? And it's a little bit of everything, but it definitely ties back to the quarterback cadence and the group's comfort level with what he's going to say next. And you could just tell, second home game, second time they've had to use their cadences this much, because they use silent count on the road quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell they're just not very comfortable with McCarthy back there right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if you think about it, McCarthy is 2-0 on the road and 0-2 at home, and it's extremely small sample size, but that's interesting at this point in his career. Like, it's supposed to be easier at home. You get the benefit of the noise going for you, not against you. You've got, you're comfortable with the surroundings, but they have not been a great home team this year, especially, outside of that weird Bengals game that we, at this point in the season just kind of throw out. Aside from winning that game, it is supposed to be easier. I think it's interesting. Like, my initial watching of the game felt like there was more equal distribution of blame between the quarterback, Justin Jefferson maybe not having his best game by any stretch, dropping a catchable ball that could have been a touchdown, falling down on that one play. It's incidental, it's accidental, but that's a big play. Like, you want your star receiver to make that play, or at the very least wind up with an incompletion. He's targeted 12 times. He only gets 4 catches. McCarthy, obviously, in that mix. The offensive line, obviously, in that mix. O'Connell with some curious decisions, like that 3rd and a foot that we talked about. He tried to clarify, by the way. He said, no, that was a 3rd and 1. Folks, that was 3rd and half a yard at the most, more like half a yard to a foot, where they threw that ball to Jefferson. So you can see where they would come back and go for it on the next play. But sometimes he's his own worst enemy when he's trying to be too smart or too he chases great sometimes when good would be just as well in the moment. I felt like there was more to go around that was more of an equal distribution, but it's interesting to hear you say, hey, no, watching back on it, I put more of it on the quarterback than anybody else.
Yeah, just because of the opportunities that were left out there. I mean, there were times where TJ Hawkinson's sitting in his zone. Like I said, the Ravens are not a great defense. Their talent is in the secondary. They can play some sticky man coverage. Their strategy on Jefferson was no different than other teams, but it was done very well in terms of bracketing him, trail technique, safety over the top stuff. They mixed it up and kind of forced JJ off of Jefferson pretty frequently. But then there were times to go to other guys, and he just wasn't doing it as consistently. And I just thought that there was enough, like I said, easy button stuff that people kind of clamor for from O'Connell. Like, why aren't you doing these quick passes? You can go back and watch it. There were a lot of them. A lot of them, though, are 5-yard screens on 2nd and 13. A lot of them ended up getting weren't well blocked. Like the trick play on 3rd and 12 that goes back to JJ McCarthy. That could have been a huge gain if any of the 4 guys in front of him had touched anybody else.
I know.
It's stuff like that where it's just like that. You could see the opportunities. They're there. If you're the coach, like O'Connell, you're planning this out. You spend all this time, and it's just a guy just whiffs, and it consistently happened throughout this game. And that's the story of this season. Like, we're 9 games into it, and this Vikings team, this offense, despite who's playing at quarterback each week, has not played well consistently around the quarterback, the other 10 guys. And they got too much money on the field. I understand they're banged up, but there's too many veteran guys for this to consistently happen. And the 13 flags accepted against the Vikings tied for the most of any O'Connell coached game. And it's tied for another game this year, another home game, the Cincinnati game. Like, this is not a team that gets flagged this much. They're not usually this undisciplined. And at least with these operational flags on offense, it goes back to the quarterback and the comfort level of running what can be a complex system. But I think by this point, they've seemingly pared it down. I'm not in the huddle, but it seems like they've kind of simplified it to the point where they're getting up to the line quicker. JJ's getting into his calls quicker, but yet an O lineman might not be comfortable with, okay, I think the next word's going to be hut. And then no, it's JJ over communicating the previous check because he was told in Detroit, not everybody got the check. You need to make sure everybody gets it this time. And so, you think it's going to be hut, and then no, it's the same check he just said the 2 seconds before. And then the guy jumps early. Like, that's how that stuff happens. And it just happens so consistently for them, which obviously hurt them.
Now, it was McCarthy's 4th start, but he's also a year and a half into his quarterback journey in the NFL, even if it's only been 4 starts, a lot of it marred by injury, but it's not like he was just sitting in a cave while he was hurt and not able to study the playbook, take simulated reps, or take, some real reps by the time he was starting to get healthy in a lot of those cases. So I guess the question should be, is it natural that he's missing these things, that he's not finding these easy buttons or missing some of these kind of checkpoints along the way? Is he missing more than he should? Is this natural for a young quarterback's progression? Like, what do you see in that?
Well, and I don't think all this is just mental too. I think some of it is physical and knowing what throws he can and cannot comfortably make at this point. And that's a big part of that past year. Coaches will tell you, like, they didn't get the on-field time where he's working on the throws. And that's a huge thing. Like, he came off of a college career that was the smallest by volume of any of the 6 first-round quarterbacks. He threw something like 700 passes where other guys are throwing 900 or whatever. And so the sample size is smaller. He's coming in with habits that need to be reworked. And he did not spend his first year on the field fully changing those habits. That only really started in earnest this spring once he got back on the field in practice. So, for instance, like the layered stuff I'm talking about, where you need to touch past some things into Hawkinson over a defender, but behind, or in front of the deep defender. Those are the kind of throws that he's working on that he did not consistently make in college. I think every quarterback who comes from college is used to more of a different definition of open, and he's still getting used to that as well. Like the first play, it's a check down to Aaron Jones, but Justin Jefferson has a window between zones on kind of a skinny post or, a deeper slant route, whatever you want to call it. And there's a window there that Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, however many quarterbacks we've seen come through here are making that throw through that window. JJ moves off it despite not having much pressure so quickly and just goes to the check down to Jones. It's that kind of stuff where and O'Connell talks about, like, I don't want to overcorrect him too much. We're hunting completions, we're hunting progress. So you don't want to overload him, but those are the things they're trying to work on with him too. Of like, we want completions, but man, you had that window to Justin. You have to anticipate it, and that throw needs to be kind of cocked back before that window is realized. And like that's how fast that stuff happens. So I think all these quarterbacks naturally go through some of these things, but specifically with McCarthy, he had to work on his tempo and his touch as a thrower, and he didn't get to do that the first year. And so now fans are witnessing this kind of rookie year physically, and then obviously mentally too. Like playing is the only way you truly build up the experience and learn how to correct and learn what to do and learn the speed of the game. So much of this just feels like a rookie out there. And when we talk about fourth start, that's like a rookie at the end of September, right? But we're in November and it feels like we're a year and a half in, because we are.
Well, and that's a great point. I thought his best throws of the day might have been his second and third throws, where he hits Jefferson when he's got, I can't remember if it was Hamilton or someone was blitzing. Someone was right in his face. I think it was Hamilton.
Yep.
Right in his face. It's a 3rd and 6, but he stands in there, makes a great throw to Jefferson for like 10 yards. They get a first down. I think it was either next play or play after. He's got Naylor down the sideline, and that ends up being like a 62-yarder that sets up the, that's good touch. That's good at finding you. He seems to be pretty good at hunting the one-on-one matchups, and at least in some cases, and finding those completions. He and Naylor had good connection in this game, but it's the consistency at this point, which we shouldn't be surprised by. But it's a consistency of decision, and sometimes it's also a consistency of accuracy that is driving down a 20 for 42. You got 8 targets to Jefferson that go incomplete. Now, some of those are bat downs, but some even bat downs are teachable moments. Those are things that won't happen probably as you get older, because it's not like he's short. It's not like he's Doug Flutie trying to throw over a bunch of tall guys that you can't see over him. Like it's more of a problem of like arm angle, or like understanding that like these guys are sitting there ready to knock that thing down. So I don't know, the inconsistency and the accuracy combined are a little troubling, even if it's very early still.
Yeah, and like with the batted passes, like we're watching last night's game, Justin Herbert's 6'6", and it's happening to him, and in large part because of the offensive lines for both of these guys getting caved in at times. Like Addison, getting left open over the middle when the one gets batted down. I believe it was the nose tackle on Blake Brandel, just getting kind of benched and worked back, and the guy can just get his arm up. Well, if you block at the line and you hold it, you don't let him kind of charge back 3-4 yards. He doesn't have that, or JJ at least has more of a throwing lane than he had. So to me, a lot of this got tied back to how the front played with him, but the cohesiveness can't be, overstated. The penalties, the lack of cohesion, all the guys just didn't seem to feel comfortable with his cadence, his operation, how he was running the show in ways that we saw them feel more comfortable with him in Detroit. Atlanta was the same, kind of a similar thing. I went back and looked at that, and Fries got called for a false start. O'Neal got called for a false start in that game. There were delay of game penalties in that one, obviously. So his 2 home starts have shown just not a cohesion with that group. And they haven't had a ton of reps together, the entire offensive line, obviously. But I think Baltimore was able to kind of win some things up front in ways that Detroit a week ago didn't do as consistently. So, but the conversation with McCarthy, I just think these are some typical things that we're seeing. It's just, having this conversation a year and a half into his career when it's really just his 4th start, that is a disconnect I think a lot of people have a hard time kind of holding on to. And I think it gets excused a little too quickly. Like this is more like he's entering October of his rookie year, even if he's had, more practices than that at this point.
We'll see if this is easily correctable.
Oh no! Don't invoke Christian Ponder.
Sorry. It was interesting to me. Like it seemed like fans post game were like 90% of their ire was directed at O'Connell, and maybe that's just naturally like when everything goes wrong, when it feels like you got a day with 8 false starts and everything just looks sloppy, you say that's on the coach. Again, I thought he could have done more stuff in this game to help from a game flow standpoint. But if you're saying, hey, they gave him some easy checks, they gave him some easy outs that he was missing, like, I don't know. People are like, take the play calling away from KOC. Like some of this just becomes like, reactive in the moment. But like, how do you feel like the treatment of him versus the reality? Where do you think that sits right now?
Yeah, I understand the frustration, right? And I understand too, because a lot of fans were promised kind of a progression of this franchise, right? Like the more is required was the offseason mantra. They spend all this money, they bring all these veterans in, but it just hasn't gone to plan. 9 weeks, 3 weeks of which you've had an offensive line play an entire game. They still haven't had their 5 projected starters on the O line play a single snap together. Like with Darisaw, with Ryan Kelly, with Donovan Jackson, with everybody. They haven't done that yet.
O'Neal,
And
yeah.
it's November. So with O'Connell, like I just think they planned all offseason for this offense to look a certain way. The Carson Wentz wrench gets thrown into it. And then with McCarthy, they're just now kind of getting a volume of plays. They've now got 4 games with him where they can truly decipher like a quarter of a season. Okay, what has he done well? What doesn't he? What should we try to do? What can't we? All those things. And that takes some time to figure out too. So O'Connell's the coach of the year for a reason. If you're frustrated with him for micro decisions, I totally understand it. 3rd and 2, throwing the ball,
Yeah.
4th and 2, throwing the ball, 3rd and 1, throwing the ball. Like I totally get that. Like we're sitting in the press box, we're saying the exact same things. Like just run it. Part of this feels like a guy in O'Connell who is so efficient. He's a machine. He's hunting the efficiency. He knows Justin Jefferson's my best player. That is going to be the best way for me to produce and gain points. So on 3rd and 2 or whatever it was, I'm going to take the one-on-one deep shot to him. But sometimes you just need to go away from the efficiency and say, use the blunt instrument and say, I have Jordan Mason, I have CJ Ham finally healthy, got my offensive line. Let's just run it into a wall twice and see if we can get a yard. Like I haven't seen him do that kind of Neanderthal football type thing that frankly fits sometimes in this violent sport. Like you just need to go back to the play style that O'Connell preaches, the physicality he wanted to see, and lean into it. And at times they leaned away from it. And I understand it. Again, this Ravens defense gave up a ton of yards. He's probably thinking there's plays to be made all over the field. But right now they do not have a quarterback who's consistently doing it. And in those critical moments, you might just want him to hand off the ball from time to time. That to me would be the biggest critique of O'Connell, is that he's obviously very pass happy as a play caller.
Yeah, I mean they what they ran had 13 designed runs to the running back on a day where they were usually either ahead or within striking distance where you didn't have to abandon the run to that degree. Let's shift our focus quickly to the defense, which I thought played pretty well. They had a lot of short fields against them from, whether it was turnovers, a turnover on downs in one case, the Miles Price fumble, which was a real kind of backbreaker in terms of the momentum of the game, because it was still only 12-10 at that moment. You see, McCarthy getting ready to go back on the field. He frustratedly unbuckles his chin strap, goes back out, and then they can't hold it there. All of a sudden, that's their first. It's their first touchdown of the day. So then you start to talk about, what they were able to do. But then Grenard getting hurt, being out of the game, that ends up being a big moment. That's when the run game for Baltimore starts to kick in. Now it feels like it might have anyway, because you're starting to wear a team down. But the difference between Grenard and whoever else is being Grenard, which before he went out wasn't a lot of Dallas Turner, but there was some Dallas Turner after that. That's a concern, as is just the development overall of Turner, even in the greater context of, hey, it feels like the defense has found something the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I've got concerns about this defense if a quarterback can buy time and take shots downfield. Like if you can test the secondary like Justin Herbert did, who am I forgetting? Somebody else just did it too. Jalen Hurts. Thank you. If you can do that, because Detroit, that was their big thing. They could not protect enough for Goff up front to leverage the things downfield like we saw them do in recent years. Baltimore, going into this, I thought Lamar would be a lot more nimble. He clearly seemed to be or I shouldn't say clearly, because I don't know, he seemed to be hampered by the hamstring injury that he was coming off of, and the coaching staff seemed less inclined to put him into mobile situations. So I wonder how much they were trying to protect him with their play calls and Lamar protecting himself. But I thought the defense played very well. They were aggressive. Baltimore gives up a ton of pressure, and the Vikings leaned into that. A lot of first and second down blitzes. Whenever Ivan Pace was in the game, he was just blitzing through the A or B gaps. They were trying to keep everything in front of them and trying to just basically collapse Lamar in the pocket. And it was funny, like they ran some of the same blitzes they ran in Detroit, and Lamar and the Ravens were just better at adjusting to it. Like instead of telling Derrick Henry, okay, go block, in the A gap, Pace or Cashman, they just sent him out to the flat and threw a quick little pass to him that the Lions, for some reason, didn't do with Jahmyr Gibbs very often. So you saw some things, kind of that cat and mouse game where it didn't work, but it largely worked. Like Jalen Redmond, they leaned on the Bear front where they put 4 defensive linemen in the game, and then had the 2 edge rushers on the side. So basically like 6 D linemen up front. And I thought all those guys won, for the most part, individual matchups that kept Derrick Henry pinned down. And then you mentioned the second half. When you lose Grenard like that, it changes things, obviously, because Dallas Turner's not the same edge setter. It forces them to put Eric Wilson on the edge. And then you're putting Ivan Pace and Blake Cashman in the middle, where with Pace, he's not as good of a cover linebacker. So that opens up some things. I looked it up. Grenard and Van Ginkel have played a total of 4 quarters together in the 16 home quarters that they've had this season over 4 games. Like, they just haven't been healthy with those edge rushers either very often, at least both of them together, which exposes the weakness of your first round pick in Turner, who just hasn't developed physically, at least to this point, a year and a half in. So, but to me, like, there's not a ton of concerns with this defense. If they can, unless they're facing a quarterback who's going to negate your pressure by buying time, or you face a group that has just this dynamite offensive line, like I just don't think we've really seen this year. The defense is really good at adjusting to the quick throw stuff that opponents do to them so often. Like Van Ginkel's taken away screens by dropping out. Eric Wilson's doing the same thing. Like, these guys are so mentally prepared for what's going to come that they're largely taking it away. And I think they held the Ravens to 4 3-and-outs on their first 5 drives. It's the only reason that was a game, into the second half.
Yeah, that, and when they got down close, they were limiting them to field goals in a lot of cases. You have to do that when you're not getting turnovers. They didn't get a turnover in this game again. Like, that piece of it is still a concern. Now, there was some of that's luck, and we saw them make a ton of plays last season, and they were playing from ahead a lot last season, where another team's going to have to throw it more. They're going to get interceptions naturally. They're 14-3, but there were some tip balls that maybe in another year, in another luckier realm, those tip balls end up as interceptions instead of falling harmlessly to the ground. But they're just not generating the same level of turnovers that they are this year. Is that happenstance? Is it playing from behind so much? Is it just the luck of the draw? Like, what do we make of that?
Yeah, we shouldn't discount the impact of the offense on that. The offense not putting up the point totals. Like, last year, opponents had to throw on the Vikings more than any other defense. Like, the throws against on the Vikings were the highest of any team in the league. That opens up the opportunities for all those volume stats, the deflections, the interceptions, all those things. It's the exact opposite this year. Teams can run the ball, clock control. We don't have to worry about pushing the pace because the scoreboard's not getting lit up. Like, all these things just make it easier. Now, also luck plays a big factor, like turnover and luck, like fumbles, a tip ball tipping to the right guy for an interception. Like, luck plays a huge factor in this as well. So I don't want to just say it's that. I also don't think the secondary is as good. I thought they were better with Cam Bynum and Stephon Gilmore. Even Shaq Griffin is your third corner over Okudah. I just think personnel-wise, they got worse in the secondary, which is also a factor. So I think all these things have led into it. And Blake Cashman had some interesting things to say after the game about it. He said, and I've heard this a lot now, heard it after Aaron Rodgers played them, heard it after even Justin Herbert played them, about how opponents get to a point where they don't have to take many risks and they can be very conservative. And Cashman said this league and teams and players are too good that if they want to play keep away from you, they can find a way to do it, especially Lamar Jackson. And that's kind of what happened, where Baltimore just didn't feel pressed. They didn't feel like they needed to put the foot on the gas. If they needed a punt after another 3-and-out, you know what, whatever, we'll do it. And that played into their favor, because by the end of it, as you said, turnover margin 3-0. Like, you don't win many games that way.
No, you don't. No, you don't. And they didn't win this one. They'll try again next week against the Bears, a mobile quarterback, a team they beat in the first game of this season. Happier times. JJ McCarthy comeback in Chicago. We'll see if they can remain perfect in the NFC North. It's weird. They could be 5-5 and 3-0 in the division after this game if they win, and still be in last place in the division. It's a weird kind of year. Nothing ever comes easy. We will talk about that next week. And until then, thanks, Andrew. We will catch up with you soon.
Sounds good, Mike. Thanks.